Well, hello, welcome to Drawing with Fire. I'm Valarie, your neighborhood pyrography artist, drawing with hubby.
Hubcap.
And today we're doing smooth, dark sky with a little bit of stars in it. So I did go ahead and I blocked in, because I am working on my other big piece, but I did quickly just block in the water. The water definitely has to go darker, but I just needed to get it laid in so that we could do the sky and kind of see this grow. So we're going to be working over in this area, and I'm actually going to be using my 18 large. Yeah, 18 large. What's wrong?
I hit live chat, but I think I hit the dislike button.
So it's been you all along.
Nah, and you found me out. I would have gotten away with it too.
Yeah. So I'm going to use the 18 large. Starting off, it's about 3.75-ish on the temperature scale. And that's because I did find in doing the water that the 18 large was doing much better smooth burning. This is basswood, and we are going to start real quick with actually punching in some stars. And what I mean by this is I am going to use this punch. You can either use a punch, or you can take an old Phillips head screwdriver and grind it down. You can also use, I didn't grab them.
An ice pick?
You could use an ice pick. Yeah, I thought about that earlier. An ice pick. And then there's also the styluses with the little balls on the end that you can use too. At least for basswood, because it's softer.
I think a leather punch would work too.
Yeah, that would work too. Anything that has a small tip, rounded tip that you can control. But what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to erase my graphite, because what I want to try to see is if I put my white in that area, that when I punch it, that'll push in the wood, indent the wood, and the white will still be there. In theory, we'll see if that happens. So, hey Andrea, Kathy, Sheila, Carrie. We are back to our regular time.
Yep.
So I'm going to just quickly erase the graphite. And you know what? Before I do all this, why don't we just test it out first, just so we know. I'm not going to bang it, like stab it, because I only need a few, and I think I can get it just by pushing. And we really don't see the white, do we? So I don't think I need to worry about it. I might do it on the bigger ones. Oh, I can see the white there. Now I'm going to push at different depths, some further in than others, and those will just make for bigger stars. Now these are my big stars for the Corvus constellation. I don't know if I actually need to do this one, because I'm going to have a 1/4 inch, and this is kind of crooked. I'm going to have a 1/4 inch mat around it. So I don't know that I need to worry about it so close to the edge like that. Or up here, that's pretty close too. But what I can do is bring them down a little bit, bring it over a little bit, and then they'll be within the frame. Again, just another artistic choice. So the harder I push, the bigger the hole is going to be. Less of a push, won't be as deep. And I'm not going in with like heavy, hot burning, so they should stay. And I can always go back and fill those in later.
What are you filling them in with?
With more white, if they're not white enough for me.
Okay.
So that's not a big deal either. So my big ones, I do want those to stand out more. So what I'm going to do, hopefully see how much, because I do want a little bit of a glow around them. These are the two biggest stars in the constellation. And I need to erase the little, like, glare that's going on around them. I just put it in because that's the photo I grabbed.
It's windy.
Yeah, it is windy.
What's coming?
It's spring. All right, so I made that one bigger.
Spring? That's your answer?
Well, it is. So it gets windy in the spring.
Does that mean that we potentially have some weather coming in?
No.
No.
All right. This.
What a roundabout way to get around to that. Spence is here.
Hey, Spence. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing and then I'm kind of spinning and making it a little bit bigger, which makes it go deeper. This is the smallest one of the constellation down here. They decided they wanted to be buttheads. Now on the bigger ones, I am going to go and have a gradient around it so it does look like they're bigger and glowing. I just needed these lines so that I didn't lose the constellation. Alright, so this is a bigger one. And I've already got my tip heating up, so as soon as I get this done. And see, I could use a Phillips for this, but I don't really want the cross or the plus sign. Just a choice. Nothing wrong with it. And then we'll see how we like it when we burn over it. Now, if I remember right, this is the biggest star. And I could always do this after burning as well, and it'll still work. Alrighty. And if I don't like it, I can always go back with some of the white gouache and like dab it in, and it'll make it brighter. Okay. I'm gonna turn my board because I want to drag. And I think we're going to start up here at the top. Let me angle. Let's see, make sure I'm on camera. I kind of want to angle it to make sure you guys can see. I see here. Okay, you can't see my test board, so my test board is off to the right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to use as much of the tip to drag down. And I'm intentionally starting at a lower heat so I can go back over it later. So I'm at the top half of this tip. This is a big tip. And crossing over where I've already burned and dragging down in the hopes of avoiding a blob. Now this would be the same as doing a dark background. And there's our star. Speed up. And speeding up means I'm lifting the tip more. It's going to heat up more. The longer it's in contact with the wood, the lighter it'll start burning. Now when the sun's going down, the darkest part of the sky is above. As it gets closer to the horizon line, it lightens up.
Yes.
Because that's where the sun is still shining. And I just go back over the area just to make sure it's smoothed out. But I try to touch down first where I've already burned. It gives me a little bit of leeway. And then I can go back up at this with a higher heat to darken it up.
Your sound is off. I don't know what that is.
It's a notification. Yes, dragging. Quickly touching down in an area I've already burned and dragging it down. Now, I've got a little bit off on some areas are a little darker, so I can use more of just the tip. Going back in oval strokes to kind of blend it in. So we can go back and forth between these strokes to help smooth it out. Now I'm not going all the way up against the cloud. I may have to use a smaller tip. And when I touch down, I am trying to touch down flat versus the tip first and then drag. Can you guys hear that? It's whistling through my window.
Yeah, it's really blowing.
Just trying to touch down as flat as I can. I can always go back over it. Now, if I was burning on short grain, I would probably start going in the opposite direction, meaning starting at the top and dragging down. I am trying to go with the grain, and that makes it a little bit easier on getting a smooth burn. When you go across the grain, sometimes even if you've got really smooth wood and a smooth tip, the tip can still grab sometimes, but if we go with the grain with a shader, it's less likely to do that. Not impossible, just a little less likely.
I also like the sound of wind, Spence.
And see, I don't like, it takes my breath away.
You don't like the wind, but what about the sound of wind?
I don't mind.
Okay.
So, it's going to be a matter of building it up. I'm just going to turn because of how I'm sitting and where I've got the camera at. And by starting at the edge, if it's a little hot, it'll burn the edge a little hot. But then you can, by that time, you've cooled it down into the lighter area. I'm not overly worried about the edge because, like I said, it is going to be covered with a mat. I still want the finished piece to look good because when somebody buys it, if they don't like the mat, they can switch out the mat. And I don't want it to look unprofessional.
Yeah.
So I'm as flat as I can go. Same concept as doing a dark background. But with this, we're kind of doing a gradient because it's darker at the top and slightly lighter at the bottom. But in getting the sky in, the smooth part of the sky, it'll make it easier to adjust the water.
Links Lady is here.
Hey Shirley.
She asks, what tip is that?
This is the 18 large. It also can be done with the large spoon shader or extra large spoon shader. I tend to go back with the spoon shader if I need to smooth out. I don't tend to like it when I first start off.
It looks like you're using the full tip. Or the full?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Flat. Are you going to be doing that for a while?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Put that up.
And see, we just went over another star. In between the punch and the white charcoal, it acts a little bit like a resist. So it's keeping that heat out of the hole. And see, I lifted up to readjust my hand, so I'm going to touch down on the edge and then drag back into the area. If I can help it, I don't want any blobs in the sky. Because this sky doesn't have like a lot of texture.
Yeah, it's pretty flat.
So as flat as I can go. Angle-wise with my hand.
Kathy is here in Arizona?
Mm-hmm. She's down in Mesa, I believe.
Oh.
Mesa area at least.
Don't we have, I thought Shirley was here.
No, Shirley is northwest.
Got you two mixed up. I apologize. Carmen is here.
Hey, Carmen. Now remember, the grain always, different parts of the grain will burn differently. And some will burn darker than others. But we are working on wood.
Wickenburg, she said.
Wickenburg. Oh, okay. She's on the other side. She's on west. She's northwest Phoenix.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing these two together, and then I'm actually going to lower my tip heat for a minute, and we're going to pop down to the bottom by the horizon line. I just wanted to get some stars in so we could see how well that went with the punch and the white charcoal. So, oops, sorry. Make sure I'm on. And I'm using the top half of the tip. Just filling in a little bit between the grain.
Say the top half of it?
Yeah, to see, because I was...
Are you going to be on the top half for a while, or are you going back to flat?
I'm just going to fill this in real quick. Okay. See, because I shifted the wood, I'm not getting caught. When I was doing it the other way, I could feel getting caught. But then as soon as I shifted the wood, now it's burning smooth. Wood could be like cats. What I mean is the grain. The grain. You know how if you pet a cat with the hair going in the opposite direction, they don't like it? Wood can be the same way. So if you're fighting the wood, flip your board 90 degrees in either direction. Oh, goodness. And try that. And see if the wood responds better. I've talked about that before. Sometimes, again, because when you run your finger over the wood, even when you've sanded it really well, you can feel a tad bit of resistance in one direction and not the other. And if you go with the non-resistant direction, it feels better on the tip.
You really have to be tuned in.
Yes, you have to feel it.
Yeah, okay.
But I think, for me, I feel better when I can feel not only what my tip is doing, but how my wood is responding. And because I figured that out, we have less words going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that all needs to go a little bit darker, but we're going to go down to the horizon line. I'm actually going to bump down to 3, let my pen cool down for a second, and we're going to quickly look at the reference photo because, and I'm going to pull the sepia for it.
So Spence says, I definitely agree, Val. I can only burn in one direction on one of my pieces. It's frustrating. Kathy says, do you ever use a zigzag movement when darkening spaces?
No, I can't think. What do you mean zigzag? As in moving my pen this way?
Maybe like not cross hatching, but that kind of
no
motion.
Zigzag. He's talking this way, across the grain, not across the grain. I'm trying to think
You
if there's.
generally use little circles, don't
Yeah,
you?
I tend to use ovals. That's just like my brain goes there first. I had to think more on it. If we look at our horizon line, and I know it's hard to see in the photo. Let me see. Can we pull up the... I'm looking for the sepia reference photo because it kind of, you see it a little bit more with the sepia. Right along our horizon line, we have a lighter line, and that's just the light from the sun just going away. This is just like the sun has just gone down. This part, the top part of the sky is dark, but right on the horizon line, we have a light area. And then it darkens up and starts going into our clouds. So I need to make sure I don't lose that light. Now, I can leave a line that I blend in. Put this back up because I keep dropping it if I don't. Sorry, getting my bearings. I know the water needs to go darker. I have a very slight line that I need to try to keep as straight as I can. Turn down my burner. What I could do, maybe, use my glass. I'm trying to keep it even so my line stays straight. I know that's hard to see. If I leave a bigger line, I have room to blend in. I'm just trying to line it up. I'm going to pull the heat from my tip. And just drag along it.
I can hear the dog that they're barking at. The wind must be carrying.
Oh, the sound of other doggies. I'm okay if it's light right now. I'm going to go back and darken it. I just need to be able to see where it is.
So you're using the glass like a straight edge.
Mm-hmm. It allows me to see the line underneath. And I don't have to worry about it pulling the heat from the tip. I think we will work. Now we got a line to work with. Now I know this part is dark, and that's about how dark this sky needs to go. So I'm gonna touch down. I'm using the top half of the tip, and then I'm gonna drag. Now I can pull that line in closer to my horizon, but this is just so I have a visual. Can always be adjusted. But we can see based on how bright that line is, it does need to be darkened. But for now, I won't darken that area until I've darkened the water and got the sky the way I want it. Because then I know how much it should be. Now we do have some clouds here. So just come up across close to it. Now we see how dark I went there. That means I'm going to have to darken this part of the sky a bit more, just to keep the gradient right. So that is okay. See, I see people who like work one area and do a beautiful job, and then add their color pencil or their paint or whatever they're going to add, if they're going to add. But then they've just tied their hands on being able to adjust. I would prefer, and maybe that's why it takes me longer, I would prefer to be able to go back and forth. Because then I know I've got it closer to what I want. So yeah, we can see. Remember, I'm on 3 right now. That's why it's burning lighter. I'm going to go ahead and bump up to 3.5 because we are starting to get into darker area. But we can see how that horizon line starts making it look right.
Yep.
And then it goes off into the clouds, and the clouds go down all the way, and it actually darkens at the bottom here because the clouds are kind of coming around. So this is correct for a sunset over water where there's no clouds, and then when there's clouds, the clouds touch the horizon. So I've just bumped up a little bit, 3.5. Blow on my tip just to cool it off for a half second while I touch down. See, I can see some lines here, so I'm not coming all the way down because we're going to do clouds next week. I think what we'll do is we'll do the dark clouds next week and the clouds that blend into the sky a bit more, and then the last we will do the lighter clouds. Our dark clouds are the most important to make our light clouds. And since we only do about an hour at a time, kind of need to break it up. We got a star right here. And what I'll do here in a minute, because this isn't as even, is I think I'll switch over to spoon shader just to show how I use it. And actually for something like this I might go with a small spoon shader because it gets in between the grain better, the big grain. So by taking a minute to kind of light in our clouds, or our stars, the way we did, it's going to be less work later.
Yeah.
So we know at the top I use 3 3/4 heat. This is 3.5. We need to start darkening it up. When I'm by myself and I just have my music on, I find myself end up counting how long my tip is touching down. And that kind of keeps my even speed. Not always. If I'm listening to a fast song, sometimes it speeds up. See, like this area burned darker, so I'm going to use more of just the tip, bring it together.
It's amazing how smooth you can get that.
You definitely have to be patient.
It takes practice.
It takes practice.
I know my pyrography didn't look like that.
Well, I think when you work on the squares, like the dark to light and light to dark,
Yeah.
that helps the most.
Yeah.
Because you're not only trying to get the right tones, going from light to dark or dark to light, but you're also trying to get a smooth burn.
Shirley wants to know if the 18 large is your favorite shader.
My favorite shader overall?
Yeah.
I love all my 18s. Shaders shape-wise, yes. Size-wise, you will find that I use the extra small and small the most. For dark backgrounds, yes. That's like trying to pick your favorite kid. The rest of you guys didn't hear me. You're all my favorite.
Hmm.
I don't think you need a bunch of tips. But for me, the Optima 18s are what I do my most work with. Followed by the ball tips. And then I'm trying to think what I use after that. After the ball tips, I would say the spoon shaders. I do not tend to use skews a whole lot.
What's a skew again?
That is the long, sharp one. That's the, a lot of people use them for fur.
For what?
Fur and straight lines.
Oh, okay.
I don't tend to use them for fur or hair.
Sorry about all the coughing.
They're good for thin flyaways for me. But the way I burn, I don't tend to like them. And if I think about it, for as long as I've been burning, those have probably been my least favorite. And those will get caught in the grain the most. Because they're so thin. So I would say those are my least, sorry guys, favorites. Just trying to keep my drag even. This is also, I guess, a good exercise to show how the grain burns differently.
Yeah.
In some places. It just takes the heat differently, and that's all wood. It may not be as pronounced, but it's all wood. So now I've got to get this up to that temperature. So we can even it out. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start by going slow. I'm actually going to slow down. And then I can start pushing up against that line. Or I can slowly raise my heat. I do find I adjust my heat less often.
Yeah.
Yeah. All about pen control.
Well, I know. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to get this.
Yeah, you would. Once you practice.
Well, over time. I'm talking about right now. I'm not saying I couldn't do it. Because of course I could. But I would have to practice a lot.
We all have to practice. See, this is a little lighter, so I'm going to use the tip. Kind of blend it in. Now, if I started with just the tip and doing the ovals, I'd have to make sure I continue to do that through the whole piece, because that creates a different texture.
Yeah.
But when you've already burned over an area, it works better. So we're starting to get a gradient. This area needs to go darker than that.
But I guess Shirley is refining her question.
Okay.
Is 18 large your favorite shader for backgrounds?
Yes, for backgrounds, yes. Yes. But I'm actually going to switch over to the small spoon shader.
Why?
Because I'm going to smooth this out.
Really? It looks pretty smooth to me.
It's not bad. It's a good first coat.
Yeah?
Yeah. But I'm actually going to smooth it out just to show. Normally I would wait to smooth it out till I had everything in.
Yeah.
But I can't get all of this in a short period of time.
No, I understand.
Plus it allows me, because I find... excuse me, I'm going to admit this. I find when I'm doing dark backgrounds, I start dozing off. So when I start feeling a bit tired...
Where's the water?
No. I catch myself. So now I'm going in between the grain. I lowered down to 3.
Safety first.
It's a smaller tip. And I'm just going in between the grain to smooth it out.
I'm here if you need me.
No.
The first signs that you're not enough, I will hose you down.
You won't know. Because I won't tell you. Until after the fact.
You don't have to.
Now, I could have started with this pen.
When your pen stops moving and you go...
Nope, I don't go that far.
That's my time to act.
When I start nodding off, I turn it off myself. Because I don't want to mess anything up. So right now I'm just, like this part of the grain went a little dark, which is fine. It actually can go dark. That's probably about...
Well, now that I've been staring at the sepia, the sky, there is a little bit of variation there.
There is slight, like really light, like really dark clouds that are, or thin clouds that are pulling in more of the background.
Yeah, I did not see that on the full color piece, on the full color reference, but on the sepia, I can see it. So, I guess another good reason to do a sepia reference.
Well, the sepia is all about the tonal values, and you may not see it in the color, but the minute you shift those tones to something monochromatic, it doesn't even have to be sepia. You could do it all red, as long as it's a monotone color. Yeah, you'll see more differences, so tonal wise.
The spin shader. So, I mean, I understand how it is. Like, it's basically
a ball tip that is bigger and doesn't require as much heat. Yeah. At least this small one is.
So what is it about the spoon shader that makes shading easier, I guess?
This is allowing me to get in between the grain. To darken up the tones without gouging or blobs or...
Because the
roundness is almost like using a ballpoint pen.
Because the 18... What was it you're using prior?
18 large.
18 large. because the 18 large did not.
You'll see it more down
It's
here.
flat.
I'm actually going to bump down to 2.5 for this lighter area and get a drink while that cools off. Like I said, I would do this when I was fully done putting in the sky.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to see why. So I bump down to 2.5. Pull the heat. I'm going to start in the darker area and work my way down.
Okay, I'm just letting you know you're kind of close to going off screen.
How far? Oh, this way. Okay. The camera's right at my mouth.
I see that.
Alright, so now I'm going to pull down here. And this will leave a texture, but when I'm going over a burned area, you don't see the texture as much. As long as the heat's not higher than what's already burned there. Now I can get into a smaller area. I can even go up to where there is the clouds a little bit.
Yeah.
It just allows me to get into the smaller areas. And if you don't have the small, the medium works really well as well.
Water looks really good. You were working on that last night?
Yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. The water looks really good.
Okay. It needs to go darker, but blocked in wise, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can actually go with a bigger ball tip. But I've also seen, I'm going to grab the extra large spoon, because this also works to smooth it out. Then I'm going to bump it up to 3.5. Remember, the thinner the tip, the less heat it required. Lower heat setting for the same tonal burn. So if it's a big area, I have been using the this extra large spoon shader.
Okay.
Here on my camera. Do I need to back the camera out a little bit?
I mean, no, as long as you're on.
Alright.
Because I think what people are looking at mostly is going to be your technique.
I can actually go darker. You see, I can smooth this out wider.
Yeah.
Since that requires more heat, we'll go down here. But for some reason, I just don't like it as much to lay down my base. So that's just dragging it. If I go do my ovals, I'd say I don't like it as much actually. For this one anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Just feels different.
Mm.
And I burn a lot by feel.
Well, sometimes a preference is a preference, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't make it right or wrong, just sometimes. Sometimes different. It does need more heat. I'm actually going to bump this up to 4.5. So I can see about smoothing out this part right here.
I understand that.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a preference. Doesn't mean anything's wrong. You get used to doing things certain ways, and if a pen doesn't feel exactly right, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the pen. This also has a smaller footprint than the 18 large. You see, I'm at 4.5. Because this area is already burned, it could even take higher heat. I do think I'd feel better laying the whole thing in and then adjusting as I go.
Yeah.
Or after I've done it.
Well, we have about 15 minutes left. So, I don't know how that affects your approach, but I thought I would let you know.
Let's see, the corner is the right tone that I want for now. You see, this one hits the grain a little differently.
Yeah. I can definitely see the smoothing out. I can also see the grain itself of the piece, which you can't really do much about that, huh?
Mm-mm.
But that's part of the charm of it as well.
Some people will sand around it. I'll just take a smaller pen and even it out.
Okay.
Because if I can get away with not sanding or scraping,
yeah,
I will always do that first. So I'm just blocking around the clouds.
I was thinking about it like from the terms of like sculpture, because anytime you scrape or you sand, that is a reductive process.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, wait, but isn't burning reductive? And then I was like, well, kind of, but it's more transformative, because you're not really removing the wood, you're just changing its property.
Yeah.
You're changing the state of it. So I'd say it's a transformative process, whereas painting is an additive process.
And just very quickly just blocking it in so we can see some clouds. But I definitely need to go back over this with the 18.
I do like, I've always liked how when you punch in the stars, that it creates that resist, because
It's the first time I've done it that way.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought you did it before.
Mm-mm. Well, I've punched, but not with adding the white first.
Oh, okay.
That's why I said needed to test it, see how it looked before I did it.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm just switching back over to the 18 because it makes me happier.
Okay.
Feels better on my hand. So this all needs to go darker. And I think that's about as dark as I'll go down here. Because this part of the clouds... Well, this part of the clouds is about the same as this tonal value. And so what happens is we've got a dark line here that turns light, and our dark goes above the horizon line, making the horizon line. So we have to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Because I've kept this at lower temperature, you haven't seen me having to clean my tip. Down in the dark.
Thank you, Kathy. Yes, please don't forget those thumbs up. It helps out Valarie quite a lot.
Yep.
As well as comments. Those always help as well. Any way that YouTube sees that the videos are being engaged with is very, very helpful.
Yes.
So, and it helps other people to see it, and it helps the channel to grow. And it's also much appreciated.
Very appreciated. I'm just trying to blend this together since I used multiple pins there. So I'm at the 3 1/4. And using more of just the tip. Oval strokes, trying to go along with the grain. It's all these minute movements.
You just said something that confused me.
Mm-hmm.
Oval strokes.
Circles.
They go along with the grain.
I'm moving my hand up and down the grain as much as I can while going in a circular motion.
Okay. Okay.
So this is up and down
Yeah.
with the grain.
Yeah.
And then this is the oval stroke that's
Gotcha.
happening as I'm moving up and down the grain.
Okay. So I was trying to figure that out. It's like, because you're going in a circle, you're going to come across the grain at some point.
At some point, because I'm moving up and down though, it makes it a wider gap.
I appreciate that clarification. That's actually a really important.
It's the same way I sand, actually.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Because I use an orbital sander. I'm going in circles, but I'm going up and down with the grain, not across the grain this way. I mean, it's still the pin, yes, the pin still crosses the grain, but it's less, it's smoother when I go up and down. It's hard. I'm trying to figure out how to clarify that the best as to why I do it. Because sometimes I will go across the grain.
Is it about feel?
It's about feel. Definitely about feel. Now, right up against some of the clouds, it's lighter. But up at the top, it's dark all the way to the cloud.
You know, I don't know if you knew this, but the astronauts on the ISS, they also have to use that kind of sander. They have to use an orbital one.
Palm sander's not going to do it?
No, it has to be orbital.
Bad dad joke.
Actually, realistically, they couldn't use a belt sander because it would like throw them all over the place. Unless they were in an asteroid belt, then that might be okay.
Dun-dun.
But if you're wearing a belt in an asteroid belt and using a belt sander, is that redundant? These are questions that I want to know the answers to. Kathy is asking, no damage to the grain, right?
No.
Okay.
Because I'm not burning black. If I had my tip up hot, then yeah, I could scorch the grain.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm doing this in layers, it isn't going... If I do too much, it can burnish. And burnish means push down the grain and make it shiny.
Yeah.
See right there, I turned my pen and it just didn't like that. So put the wood back the way it likes it. And now I need to blend that in. Which isn't a big deal because I needed to darken this area anyway. Now closer to some of these clouds, it's lighter because of the cast light coming off.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to burn lighter and then I can adjust that. So we've got like mini gradients going on right here. Darker at the top, lighter at the bottom. But you can see I haven't picked up my pen, so it's burning really light. So I'm going to pick up, touch down in a dark area. You see now the ovals over the non-burnt areas aren't quite as smooth. So I'm going to go back to the drag.
Kathy says, great class. Thanks for sharing your amazing talents.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
So who all works with resin? And if you're watching on replay, by all means, comment. Because I was going to do my nebula with resin till I started doing research. turns out epoxy resin should not be applied over polyacrylic because it can delaminate. But I also need to seal down the wood before I pour or do the resin, because even though I've wiped the carbon off as much as I can, there's always going to be some, and it can smear. So I do have to worry about that. And UV spray apparently also shouldn't be used. Now, polyacrylic and UV spray can be used on top of resin to help protect it, but not underneath it. It appears anything water-based can cause delamination down the road. And I know some people use Mod Podge. I will not use that because they're just using the regular Mod Podge glue stuff.
Yeah.
And it says right on the bottle that it is not a varnish, and it takes 6 months to cure.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. So even if it's dry to the touch, it still has 6 more months to cure. But if you're putting a resin layer over it, it cannot fully cure. So I do not know what will happen to those pieces a couple of years down the road of people using that technique.
And we do have to think about that as artists,
and
like
yes,
how our work gets preserved.
Yeah.
Because if you have a work of art that you've worked on for 20, 30, 100 hours, and the finish ruins it in 5 years or 10 years, that's not good. So,
especially if you sold it for a lot of money.
yeah. Spence says he's never worked with it, but he'd like to see what you'll be doing.
Well, for the nebula, because I don't have time to do a bunch of experiments, I will actually be doing what will look like a resin finish, but it's actually with the Liquitex gloss varnish. It appears if you float the varnish versus brushing it heavily and doing many, many layers, you can get a resin-like finish.
We're going to have to order some more.
Oh, I have a bottle.
Oh.
You have a bottle, right?
Yeah, I got a bottle. I don't know how full it is. It's enough to do my piece.
Oh, it's enough to do your piece? Then I might have to order more. So that is right now for that piece. That's the only choice I have because I don't have the time. So my question is, for anybody who uses epoxy resin, what is the best way to varnish, seal your piece prior to applying the epoxy that does not darken the wood heavily? Oil-based products always darken the wood more.
Yeah.
And apparently oil-based products can also cause issues with epoxy.
Sheila says her daughter-in-law bought her some resin at Christmas, but she hasn't had a chance to try it.
Yeah, and I've got that resin I need to test. And what always frustrates me is going on the internet and trying to do my research, and people who proclaim to know what the hell they're talking about post one thing, and then somebody else who claims to know what the hell they're talking about posts something else, and you don't know which is correct.
You sound disgruntled.
Well, it was frustrating because I spent...
It's like Wilford Brimley. You're channeling Wilford Brimley right now.
Well, I spent...
Or Ron Swanson.
Oh, hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that. I spent all morning, Saturday morning, trying to find this answer. I found a YouTube channel who does epoxy, so I left a comment on one of their videos. Unfortunately, did not get too much clarification. So I'm just going to ask anybody. I am ultimately going to test it out and see what the correct answer is. Or the closest correct answer.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be, oopses. It worked on this one, but it didn't work on that one type thing.
Well, let me ask you this. Are there no UV protective resins?
The purpose of the UV spray is ultimately to lock in the carbon and the white charcoal or any color that's on it. And somewhat to protect the burning, but mainly to protect anything on the surface from smearing and smudging. Okay. That is the main, because I use light, fast products.
Okay.
Although a wood burning itself definitely can fade.
Yeah. So
that little added UV protection definitely helps.
Yeah.
But my main thing is locking down any loose carbon that maybe I missed or whatnot in any white or color that I apply to keep it from smearing when I go to brush or pour anything on top of it.
Okay.
That is what I want to know. What can I put that is not Mod Podge, that is not oil-based, onto the wood, to lock everything in, and then pour the epoxy resin on top without any issues of delamination, cracking, fish eyes, anything like that.
Okay.
Haze, because if there's water in the product or in the wood, it can create haze. It can create the fish eyes.
Carrie wants to know if you've ever tried shellac.
No. That definitely darkens and yellows the wood. So no. No. I mean, there's always going to be some darkening of the wood. Anytime wood gets wet, it darkens.
Yeah.
But polyacrylic, and somebody, I'm not going to name the pyrographer, did a video on varnishes and was talking about Mod Podge. I have not tried the Mod Podge varnish. They do have a varnish. But Mod Podge itself is not a varnish. It says it right on the bottle.
How much longer are we running?
Oh, my hand just kept going.
Well,
it kept going.
That's my job.
Although it needs a break. Oh, let's back this out so we can start seeing. Not a whole lot, but in seeing the darkness here, we definitely know we need to darken the water.
Yeah.
But that isn't easy. That's so easy to resolve. So next week, and I definitely like the punch with the white. Yeah. Because these smaller stars, I did not want them overly white because they're just stars in the sky that are kind of further back. These for the, let's see here, how does it go? It goes this way. Go down. There's 5 stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That doesn't feel right. It goes that way. Goes this way. Comes down this way. Oh. Comes down here and goes that way. That's what it is. I'm going to do those brighter. In fact, because they're bigger holes, I can always have a sharp tip and just get a little bit more white in there.
Sheila says PVA glue.
See, I don't want any glue. Even if it was okay to do with epoxy, glue always fails. Whether it's 5 years from now or 100 years from now, the glue will fail and is extremely hard to remove.
Gotcha.
So,
Carmen,
see my problem?
Carmen's got to go.
Bye, Carmen.
She says thank you again for everything you do, and it's much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Carrie says looking real good, Val.
Thank you. I know it looks streaky right now, but without everything else in. It's hard to see. So I will finish the sky, this part of the sky, by next week. By next week's live. And then we're going to work on the dark clouds, because those dark cloud shapes are what help shape the lighter clouds.
Yeah.
And there's more of it.
Doesn't look streaky. You think it looks streaky?
Well, it does, but I still need to go over it a little bit more, and I need to... No, that's normal. I'm not... Psst, 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 psst. Are you losing air? Are you deflating?
I'm expressing my my sarcasm.
I will test the epoxy, and I will find something that works for what we want. I was just a little bummed that this channel that's all about resin couldn't give me an answer. The answer was, unfortunately, we haven't worked a whole lot with pyrography, so we don't know where to direct you. Except the pyrography part doesn't matter. I just need to know what can seal the wood, and the epoxy can sit on it without any issues of the seal layer and the epoxy reacting to each other. That's all I need to know. It doesn't matter about the color, or is there anything I can spray on to protect the wood prior to the epoxy layer. That's it. That's what I need an answer to. But I don't have time to make those tests for the nebula. So it's something I have to do on my own down the road. Yeah. Alrighty. Do we have any questions?
You don't see them.
Do not see them. I'm sorry, my eyes are blurry because the lights, and I was so focused on the wood burning. So right now my eyes are blurry. That's why I'm squinting. And I still can't really read it. Yeah, the PVA glue, that is a... Thank you, Kathy. Kathy said she'll check with her hubby.
Yep.
I just... All kinds of recommendations totally work, and I'll just go through all of them and research them, because that's what I do, and put it together, and then I will let everybody know. Because it's definitely frustrating not getting a straight answer. Because on the resin I have, it doesn't say, it just says it's a resin for artwork. It doesn't say what I can use underneath it. And then on another website I saw that resin can sit on top of most varnishes, which apparently is not true. So that's the frustration. Why even bother to seal it with anything? The resin was... I agree, but I don't want any of the white charcoal or anything moving or floating in the resin. So if I can lock down that layer, I don't have to worry about if any carbon that I missed floats up to the top and you can see it within the resin layer, or the white charcoal getting smeared and leaving a hazy area. And it's just something good to know. Now, if I was doing a burning where I didn't burn red hot, so there's not a black burning, and I don't need to add white to it, then I think just sealing with resin would be totally fine. But, yeah. I will figure it out. And anybody's, please let me know. Alrighty. So dark clouds next week.
Okay.
Let me know if you're burning along. Because I want to make sure I see everybody's. I'm going to grab this. Alrighty. So we're just going to go ahead when I can find it. There we are. Oh, I think I am going to do a big version of this with the heat gun. Just so I can see the difference. But not...
That'll be cool.
Not on live. Just to see how well that does. Okay. So, say it with me. You're awesome. You can do this. Why? Because you're a pyro artist. Happy burning, guys. Bye.